On today's Locked On Jayhawks, Dajuan Harris is back to being able to finish on the inside, and we saw Kansas dominate with 2-point shooting and passing led by Dajuan Harris.
You are Locked On Jayhawks, your daily podcast on the Kansas Jayhawks. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Derek Johnson. You can find me on X, Twitter at DJohnsonRadio, Blue Sky at Derek Johnson. And this is Locked On Jayhawks. Thanks for making it your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts, including on our YouTube page where you can like and subscribe to the show. Kansas defeats North Carolina Wilmington 84-66. And our biggest takeaway from this one is that Dajuan Harris is officially back to being able to finish consistently on the inside. This was something that was maybe a little bit more of a struggle for him and KU as a team to last year. So we're going to get into that. We're going to get into the 2-point dominance that was for KU. Kind of a weird win for Kansas with the game not starting off super hot in the first half, but they end up going through. So we're going to get into all that, our game awards, and some recruiting news that we're going to get into as well, where KU women's basketball landed a top 30 recruit, and KU football got a running back who's previously committed to Notre Dame. All of this is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Just visit FanDuel.com to get started today. So Kansas wins 84-66, and Dajuan Harris was excellent for KU in this game. He leads them in points with 17 of them. He leads them in assists with 6 of them. He leads them in steals with 2 of them. He leads them in plus minus at plus 20. And overall for the game, this is wild. Kansas didn't miss a single shot. At least this is according to Stat Broadcast, right? It might be different for some of these places that game chart this stuff. But at least according to Stat Broadcast, they were perfect on layups and dunks in this specific game. And I think the big deal here is with Dajuan Harris. We saw last season, it was weird because 2 years ago, Dajuan was solid at finishing at the rim. You think of the Iowa State game winner that he had on kind of the runner in the year. They won the national championship. And you look at Dajuan Harris, and in the 2023 to 2024 season, he only shot 51% at the rim, which and then 39% on in the paint shots, if you want to kind of extend that out a little bit more. But that 51% shooting at the rim was in the 27th percentile of the country. So that was not a good number for Dajuan. And there were some of them where it was just like, you understand a bit of it. Kansas didn't have great spacing last season, and so it's not going to open up driving lanes as much for guards, and because they weren't super dynamic on offense, sometimes he had to just try to take control and force something. So, I understood why it happened, but also there were some where you didn't understand, and maybe it was just became a mental thing where he just missed like a layup that was just kind of a bunny that you normally wouldn't make. We come into this year, and it's like, okay, which Dajuan are you like? Is it going to be back to normal? Well, it's been even better than anything. Coming into tonight's game, Dajuan Harris was 4 for 4 at the rim. He was 5 for 10 in the paint. So basically, when you look at everything inside the square, inside the free throw line, he came into this game 9 of 14 on the season. Well, he didn't miss a single one because Kansas didn't miss a single one, so I know that for sure. He was 2 of 6 on threes. He was 4 for 4 on 2-point shots, and I believe all of them were in the free throw line. He had, I think, a floater in there. He had a couple layups in there. So I guess you can tentatively say that he is now 13 of 18 on shots inside the paint so far this season. I mean, that's a ridiculous turnaround for him to be at. And the importance to that is, well, I think there's a reason. You look at one, KU has much better spacing on this year's team. You have way more 3-point shooters with Rylan Griffin and Zeke Mayo. And I know it wasn't a good 3-point shooting game tonight, but you have a lot more threats, a lot more respected threats. And even when you are playing 2 big basketball of KJ and Hunter, just having more shooting threats this year than you had last year at least opens things up a little bit more. I also bet Dajuan worked on it a lot during the offseason. Like I'm sure that was talked about, and he certainly seems like he's improved on that. And it was good to see in this game because that's kind of been a punctuation of what the early part of the season has been for him. And that was really the theme of the game in what Dajuan has been good at and was in this game, finishing at the rim, passing the basketball, good transition play, like that was the theme for KU as a team in this game. Like I said, Kansas didn't shoot well from three. They were 6 of 25 from three-point range. Kansas didn't shoot well at the free throw line. They were 10 of 16. That's 62.5% on free throws. The first half was not a good rebounding half for KU. Much better rebounding half in the second half for KU, but still. The big difference in this game for KU was their two-point shooting, scoring at the rim, transition ability to get out, and their passing. And they led 20-4 in assists. And again, Dajuan ends up spearheading that. He leads you in assists. He had 6 assists to just 1 turnover for KU. That's going to certainly lead you. Kansas had 2 less turnovers than UNC Wilmington, and they had a 16 count advantage, however you want to view that, in terms of total assists in the game. 20-4. That is unbelievable. You think about the transition play. You think about the different players that were passing. You think about some of the possessions they had. Some they did score, some they didn't, where a guy would hold it and the ball's off before, no processing. They just knew what they were doing. Half-second passes. And it was a beautiful thing to see. I mean, you end up with 5 assists from KJ Adams, 6 assists from Dajuan Harris. You end up with multiple assists from every player in the starting lineup. And then you also get 2 assists off the bench from David Coit. So, it was just a little bit of everyone. And the ultimate result is that you're getting easy buckets at the rim in either transition or coming off these passes or Dajuan finishing at the rim. 52-22 points in the paint for Kansas, plus 30 there. And here's the crazy one. Again, like I said, they were perfect on layups and dunks. Stat Broadcast has them 17 of 17 on layups, 5 of 5 on dunks, so 22 of 22 on layups and dunks. Usually you're going to miss some, right? There's going to be contested layups that you're going to miss. Maybe they're like we saw the game before where KU muffed an alley-oop or two, right? 28 of 37 overall for KU on all 2-point shots. That even includes mid-range shots. That's 76% on 2-point shots. Meanwhile, you're looking at 15 of 37. That's 41% on 2-point shots for North Carolina Wilmington. So again, it's these things that Kansas was just so overpowering in. And some of this stuff, these things they've been overpowering in even last year, but this year it's an even better version of that. It's an even more refined version of it. And part of, the both result and the process of that is kind of what Dajuan Harris did at the rim in this game. I think also another good showing from the bench, if we're going into the other notes portion of this, you never know where it's going to happen from the bench. I think this bench, you go back to the previous game, it was AJ Storr who was the big bench scorer, bench player for KU in that one. In this one, it was David Coit. He scores 13 points for you off the bench. You don't really know which guy it's going to be any given night. And eventually the rotation is going to whittle down a little bit more. And then maybe it will become a little bit more predictable there. But that's kind of the point of the bench. It's you don't know which guy's going to go off, but in the night that guy goes off, he's going to earn more minutes. And the guys who aren't are going to play a little bit less. But that's the point of having a good bench. That it's impossible for every player to have their best game each and every night. And that was a luxury that Kansas wasn't really afforded last season. Also, the Flory ankle injury, that really sucked, especially because there was a sequence that really stood out to me in 2 possessions where the score did not change. It was at 19-11 with over 12 minutes to go in the first half. 1 defensive possession, 1 offensive possession. Neither team scored. So he goes for a block on the defensive end, doesn't get it. And this guy for North Carolina Wilmington looks like he has the offensive rebound bottled up. The big man has gone out of the picture. He's gone for the block. Somehow he has the agility enough to quickly sidestep back into the equation, grab the rebound. That type of athleticism you cannot teach. Then immediately on the other end, he gets doubled and he immediately recognizes it. Passes out of the double, wide open Dajuan Harris. He missed the 3-point shot, but it was good process. And then eventually he gets hurt, and that was unfortunate. You hope he's back. I guess long-term, you hope he's back. He's, a very important player for you, but I hope he's back for the Duke game and ready to go because they are huge. They have a bunch of size. That would be a huge loss for KU in that one. Also, other note, unfortunately, AJ Storr was unable to carry over his momentum from his last game. He just wasn't really making shots, 1 of 5 from 3, but it wasn't a great AJ Storr game. Unfortunately, you were hoping that it was going to piggyback off the last game. I don't think it was a bad game or anything, but it certainly wasn't, living up to the same billing of the previous game. But bottom line here, Kansas was great in the second half. This was not the most impressive win of all time. I think you were like 25-point favorites. The first half was certainly a little bit scary. Your defense certainly left some stuff to be desired. Your defensive rebounding that led to their offensive rebounding certainly led a little bit to be desired in that first half of play. But I'm not really going to complain over an 18-point win against a team that's won 21-plus games over the last 3 years and won at Kentucky last year. And they have some talent, and you didn't shoot well. So on to Duke. Kansas wins. They are 5-0. Let's get to our game awards next. This is Locked on Jayhawks. Our episode of Locked on Jayhawks today is brought to you by Mint Mobile, where you can get some really good price deals on you just need phone service. And to get started, go to mintmobile.com/lockedoncollege. There you'll see the right now, all 3-month plans are only $15 a month, including the unlimited plan. All plans come with a high-speed data and unlimited talk and text delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. You can use your own phone with any Mint Mobile plan and bring your phone number along with all your existing contacts. That makes things a lot easier. Find out how easy it is to switch to Mint Mobile and get 3 months of premium wireless service for $15 a month. To get this new customer offer and your new 3-month premium wireless plan for just $15 a month, go to mintmobile.com/lockedoncollege. That is mintmobile.com/lockedoncollege. Cut your wireless bill to just $15 a month at mintmobile.com/lockedoncollege. $45 upfront payment required, equivalent to $15 a month. New customer on first 3-month plan only. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes on unlimited plan. Additional taxes, fees, and restrictions apply. See Mint Mobile for details. Thank you to everydayers tuning in to each and every show. Thank you to you for listening, whether it's your first listen, if it's your, 700th episode listen. I don't even think we have that many, but, shout out to you, whatever you're listening to. You can make Locked on College Basketball, Locked on College Football, your second listen every day, and check out what's going on around the rest of the nation. All right, our game trophies here, which if you're new to the show, we basically give out just like random trophies to people. We have some of our standard ones like best moment, worst moment, offensive MVP, defensive MVP. The rest kind of go game to game and have fun with it. Okay, let's start with our best moment. I think that Dajuan won in the second half, especially when you look at the theme of this game of KU being able to finish on the inside and Dajuan being able to finish on the inside. I think that makes a lot of sense, and getting the and one there, that was a key play. I thought that was kind of a funny celebration. You just looked like a canned sardine just like laying down there on the baseline, and then he just rolls up and he's like, yeah, I'm good. We're good. I'm going to the free throw line now. That was a cool moment. And then honestly, I think the coolest play of the game was in the final minute when the game was already out of reach, but you got into transition real quick. Rylan Griffin pitched it ahead. Dajuan Harris gets it, throws the alley-oop. AJ Storr throws down a dunk coming from the side with under a minute to go. So pick and choose which one you want for the best moment. Worst moment, if we're talking kind of big picture from the game, it is Flory rolling his ankle, because you don't know, is that going to lead to a couple missed games? That's the thing with ankles. Is it a rolled ankle where he's just going to be day-to-day at practice and then he's going to be able to kind of fight through it, but it's going to be a little tender? Is it going to be a sprained ankle? Is it grade 1? Is it grade 2? Is he going to need surgery? Grade 3, right? On video, it didn't look like the worst one in the world, but we've seen stuff like that happen before. We've seen ones where it's like, oh my gosh, that guy looks like he just broke his ankle. And it's like, oh, he came back and played later in the game. So who knows? And I'm not going to be a TV doctor because I am not a real doctor and I'm not good at judging that sort of things. But I think probably worst moment, actually from what happened in the game outside of that big picture stuff, is when that one possession they had in the first half. I think you had just turned it over or something. And then they went down and they got 3 offensive rebounds on the possession. And they ended up leading you in offensive rebounds. And that was certainly a big thing in the first half. The Kansas wasn't forcing turnovers. They were getting offensive rebounds. They're just winning a lot of possessions. That's something this team needs to find a way to be better at, is winning those extra possessions, whether it's them being an offensive rebounding team, whether it's going from being a good defensive rebounding team to being an elite defensive rebounding team, whether it's forcing more turnover. You have to figure out ways to do that. And that was a bad moment in the first half. This award, the played really, really hard award, but didn't have the production to show for it. I think that goes to Rakeese Passmore. So Rakeese Passmore only ends up with 2 points, 3 rebounds, which I guess you could say in 6 minutes, like if you extrapolate that out, 30 minutes, that's 10 points and 15 rebounds. So that is pretty good production. But in terms of like standout production, I don't think anybody's going to walk away from this game and be like, did you see the stats that Rakeese Passmore put up in 6 minutes? Felt like he was running around really hard out there. He was trying to get involved in a lot of stuff. Like I thought you could see the hustle was there. And I think there was a little bit of a sense of urgency knowing that Bill Self's going to be trimming down the rotation soon, maybe as soon as next game for Duke. Now, maybe it balloons back up with some later games, but you think about the stretch upcoming, right? I know there's Furman, which gives you a chance more of like a game like this where it's like it's a solid mid-major team, but you're going to be expecting to go deeper into the bench. But still, you think about this game, you think about the Creighton game, NC State, like Missouri, all that sort of stuff. Those games are going to have tighter rotations. And so Rakeese Passmore trying to lay it all on the line to be like, no, I deserve to be in part of it. I don't know if it's going to be enough to kind of change things, but I did appreciate the hustle. And if he continues to play like that when he comes in and practice like that, good things are going to happen for him. And I still think he has a very bright future. If I would have shot it well from 3, I would have had an awesome game. Award goes to Zeke Mayo. Zeke Mayo, I mean, field goal percentage-wise, 50%, you might be thinking, oh, that's not shooting bad at all. Referring to shooting from 3, because Zeke Mayo had 10 points, 2 rebounds, 2 assists, 1 block, 1 steal. He was plus 17, which was the third best number on KU. Hunter and Dajuan were the top 2 at plus 20. But he was 0 for 4 from 3. And it's funny because coming into the game, our game preview, I picked Zeke Mayo to be a player to go off for KU because you looked at some of the stuff that North Carolina Wilmington was giving up. It was above the break threes. Well, he got a couple open looks from above the break threes. He just didn't cash them in. So the threes just aren't falling right now for Zeke. They're going to fall. He's a good enough shooter. He's going to keep shooting. They will fall. Maybe it'll come in a reversion to the mean game where he has like a 6 of 8 game. Maybe it'll even happen in the Duke game. Like that'd be pretty cool if that sort of thing happened. But think about that. If he ends up just 1 for 4 from 3, which would still not be like a good shooting night for him, ends up with 13 points. And that sounds, he goes 2 for 4, which would have been very easy given, having some of the open looks. He has 16 points and all of a sudden it looks way different than it certainly was. The How Did That Go In award, we have 3 candidates for this. There was the Dajuan floater at the end of the shot clock. So there was the one possession in the second half. Dajuan gets it with like 4 on the shot clock from Zeke Mayo. And it's like, okay, put it up. He had a decent look at a 3, opted not to, drove in, and then he throws up like a running layup to the right. And their big man, especially, I couldn't tell it as much like in the actual moment, but when they showed the replay, he was like very close to blocking it. Somehow goes in before the shot clock buzzer. That one goes up there. UNC Wilmington banked in a 3 at the end of the first half. That is a candidate here. And then, not at the end of the first half, in the first half. And then Hunter Dickinson in transition. That is our winner here. There was the play Hunter Dickinson gets behind the defense in transition, goes up to dunk it. It gets blocked from behind, banks like off the, I don't even remember if it hit the backboard. I think it was just off the back of the rim and then down. I don't know how that went in. I don't think if you did that 100 more times, maybe one other one goes in. That was wild. Rebounding MVP, that goes to Hunter Dickinson too, though. He had 15 points, which felt like a very quiet 15 points, which is like very Hunter Dickinson, just consistently just produces and gives you real numbers. 7 of 11 shooting, but he had 15 rebounds and 14 were on the defensive glass. Again, he's not going to be the best offensive rebounder in the world because he's still fine as an offensive rebounder, but that mostly goes to the guys who are quick, athletic, jump really high because you have to outmaneuver somebody who's boxing you out. With defensive rebounding, it is about positionality, size, strength, knowing angles, and he's so good at defensive rebounding. 14 defensive rebounds, 15 rebounds total for the game. He had 15. The rest of KU had 23. The rest of the KU starters had 12. So, rebounding MVP for Hunter Dickinson. Offensive MVP, that's going to go to Dajuan Harris. I mean, we could put Hunter Dickinson, but with Dajuan, 17 points, 6 of 10 from the floor, made all those shots on the interior, 6 assists to 1 turnover, just awesome game all the way from Dajuan Harris. I think he pretty clearly wins offensive MVP there. And then defensive MVP, this was not a game where, that necessarily sticks out. So Donovan Newby, who was coming in averaging over 22 points per game, he only had 7 points. Some of that was Dajuan Harris. Some of it was David Coit. Some of it was Zeke Mayo. Like, it was a little bit of different guys. So I don't know who to give credit to there. You know what? How about this? Okay, so you go back to the previous game. Kansas had 6 steals in their game against Oakland. All of them were from Dajuan Harris and Hunter Dickinson. In the first half, Kansas only had 2 steals against North Carolina Wilmington, but 1 each from Hunter Dickinson and Dajuan Harris. Dajuan ended up with 2 in this game. They're basically, over the last 2 games, there have only been 2 steals from players not named Hunter Dickinson and Dajuan Harris, which is kind of a problem. They need to get that figured out, especially with how athletic some of these players are. And if you're having guys playing smaller roles off the bench, they should be more energized to go get steals. But Zeke Mayo had one in the second half, and then Rylan Griffin had that one at the start of the second half. I'm just going to give it to Rylan Griffin for ending that streak of 60-something straight minutes of basketball where only Hunter Dickinson and Dajuan Harris had a steal for KU. So Rylan Griffin gets defensive MVP for this one. All right, let's finish up some recruiting news for KU women's basketball, landing a top 30 recruit, and KU football flipping a running back from Notre Dame. Our episode of the show is brought to you by Skylight Frames. Do you struggle to find the perfect gift during the holidays? Maybe gift giving isn't your love language. You overthink it, you wind up with something disappointing or nothing at all. Are you buying for someone who has everything or just seems unpleasable? Are you tired of wasting money on useless clutter that no one really needs? And then you're kind of in the back of your mind thinking, are they going to actually use this Christmas gift, or did I just buy them their next garage sale item? Well, we got the perfect gift for you instead. Skylight Frame is the touchscreen digital photo frame for your whole family that they're going to love. Upload thousands of photos with your phone and watch them appear in seconds. It's so easy to use. Setup takes less than 60 seconds. Seamless sharing. Invite friends and family to easily share photos via the free Skylight mobile app or email. No account or subscription required either, right? It looks beautiful in your home. Photos are displayed in HD resolution, and you can choose from 5 different frame styles. Set it up in portrait or landscape mode. And now, as a special limited time offer for our listeners, get $20 off your first purchase of a Skylight frame when you go to skylightframe.com/college. That is SKYLIGHTFRAME.com/college. Get $20 off your purchase now at skylightframe.com/college. Our episode today is also brought to you by FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place, or college basketball, college football. So many sports going on right now. NBA, NHL, Macklin Celebrini. Oh, yeah. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's at FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL and the Locked On Podcast Network. Finishing things up on this episode of the show with a little recruiting news for KU football and KU women's basketball. Let's start with the KU women's basketball. That one was fresh from today. So Jaliya Davis. She is a top 25 prospect in the class of 2025. She's a 6'2" small forward from Blue Valley North, and she has committed to Kansas. So they already had a top 50 commit in tow. They had another commit in tow that at last I checked was unranked. She becomes the 3rd commit in the class, but this is obviously the biggest one. This is the crown jewel. And you think about Samaya Nichols joining the team last year, had such great impact as a freshman. She's having a great year already early as a sophomore. You look at her being a junior next season when this year might be a little bit of a rebuilding year, right? I mean, if they could make it back to the tournament this year, I think that'd be a huge success. You're going to have a big recruiting class coming in. And maybe it's not even done. Like, there's a lot of local talent in the Kansas City area, Sunflower League and some of these, EKL and stuff like that. There's a lot of good women's basketball talent. That was the case with Samaya Nichols. That's the case here. Like, if you can just continue to recruit that hard and recruit it well, you're going to end up with some really good teams. And so big time for Brandon Schneider and the KU women's basketball team. And already getting excited about what the team could be next year and even the season after that, possibly with some of the talent coming in. Now, as far as the football field, there was some bad news and some good news. I want to rip the Band-Aid off. The bad news was Joe Skipworth, who was a 3-star tight end. He was an 87 graded player on 24/7 Sports, just outside the top 1,100 on their composite. He decommitted from KU, ended up switching to Mississippi State. He committed to KU originally back on June 12th, but he had visited Mississippi State, and then he visited him again like a week or two ago. Ends up flipping. The thing is with that one, it's like, I almost wonder if when he committed to KU, because he had already been in talks with Mississippi State and stuff, did he commit? And then it's one of those things where it's like, oh, I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm going to flip a coin. And then you flip the coin and you're like, okay, I said heads is this, and it's heads. And you're like, actually, I don't want to do that. Where he like committed to KU and he's like, actually, I kind of want to go to Mississippi State. And maybe that just eked into his mind, because it can't be, oh, well, KU's not having as good of a season as they hoped for. Okay, they're coming off back-to-back ranked wins, and Mississippi State's 2-8. So I don't know what it would be. But the good news here is that Justin Thurman, who is a running back committed to Notre Dame, is now with Kansas. Now, the headline for some of the places was flipped from Notre Dame to Kansas. It sounds more like, I think Notre Dame got a commit from a kid who was previously committed to like Boston College or some other school. And I think both parties were kind of like, hey, if we want to go other directions, like we'll make it happen, right? And so I think this was kind of a mutual thing. I know that sounds like I didn't break up, or she didn't break up with me. It was mutual. We both decided on it, right? I actually think like this was one of those situations where Notre Dame was probably like, listen, we got somebody who might be in front of you in the class. We'll help you find another spot. And if you're Justin Thurman, you're going, yeah, I did. After I saw he went there, I was like, I don't know if that's going to be a place for me. Also, it seems like he's been falling a bit in some of the recruiting rankings. So I don't know if that plays into it as well either. But overall, he's kind of a fringe 3 to 4 star guy, depending on where you look. Like, he's a 4-star at ESPN and Rivals. He's a 3-star for On3 and 24/7 Sports, and track athlete, very fast. There was a Notre Dame article when he had committed there that had mentioned him running a 4.440. He runs a sub 11-second 100-meter dash. So really fast player. The videos I watched, the highlights I watched, good speed, can really break away, good jump cut. Didn't break a ton of tackles, ran a little bit higher than you might expect. Did break through like arm tackles. So it'll be interesting to see what you can do there. But if you can refine his game, he clearly has the home run speed to become kind of a player from therefore going forward. And he becomes the second running back in the class, joining I think John Kelly. So it'll be interesting to see, because they brought 2 running backs in the previous class too. One of them ended up transferring away before the end of spring ball. What's the dynamic there with those guys? Clearly, you would think with Devin Neal gone at the end of the season, there's going to be some carries, there's going to be some opportunities up for grabs, and we'll see which young players can grab that by season's end. That'll do it for this episode of Locked On Jayhawks. You can find our show anywhere you get your podcasts, including on our YouTube page. Thank you for joining us today. We'll be back on Thursday. We're going to have a Kansas-Colorado preview day early. It's senior day. Also, we're planning to do a crossover episode with the host of the Colorado show for Friday's show as well. So stick with us for those right here with Locked On Jayhawks.